Hi, I'm JP Murrieta with the New Mexico Activities Association. Year in and year out, it seems like there's some confusion or misunderstanding on how the seeding and selection process works. This video is designed to help you understand how the teams get seeded for the state championships. There's a misconception that the NMAA has input or bias with the seeding and selection to the state tournament. There is no input given by any NMAA staff member. Let me repeat that. There is no input given by the NMAA. Teams don't get seeded higher or lower because you think we like that school or don't like another school. That's not how it works. Here is the criteria used by the NMAA to determine the seeding and selection. This criteria was voted on by the member schools. We look at a team's finish in regular season district play. We make head-to-head comparisons against schools. We look at wins against district champions regardless of class. A team's overall record, or rather their win percentage, is another element of criteria, as well as the school's Maxpreps Ranking. The final criteria is member school input, or a coach's form submitted to the NMAA before the seeding process begins. All of this criteria is data-driven. We are using numbers and numbers only to seed and select. Not one of the criteria is more important than another. For example, head-to-head does not weigh more in determining a seed than overall record. If there is a tie between two schools with criteria points, then head-to-head will be used. If there's no head-to-head competition or the head-to-head is tied, then the Maxpreps Ranking will be used to break the tie. Here's how the process works. First, we receive the district placement form from the district chairperson. We get this form from every single district. The district chair will write down who finished first, second, third, etc. This is very important. In seeding and selection, a team cannot be seeded or selected in front of another team that finished above them in the district standings. Here's an example. If one school finished second in the regular season and another school finished third in the regular season, the third place team cannot be seeded ahead of the second place team. The member schools and commission and board of directors wanted to put importance on the district season. So you can't be seated above someone that finished higher. Now, in the event of a tie in the regular season district standings, the NMAA staff may use the 6 criteria points or any other head-to-head competition to determine the seeding and selection order between the two teams that are tied. After we get the district placement forms, then we receive the school input forms. These are filled out from the coach from each school. We request them from every school, whether they think they will make the postseason or not. It's very important all coaches submit this form because it has an effect on seeding and selection. Once we get these forms, the votes are tabulated by putting them into a matrix or a spreadsheet that looks like this. All the teams are listed vertically and horizontally. Now, this is an example from the 2019 boys basketball seeding for Class 5A. Volcano Vista submitted their member school input form. They voted Las Cruces first, Volcano Vista second, Rio Rancho third, etc., etc. So Las Cruces gets 16 points, Volcano Vista gets 15 points, Rio Rancho gets 14 points, etc., etc., all the way down their rankings. The last team on a coach's input form would get 1 point. We go to another school that submitted their form. Carlsbad listed Volcano Vista first, Las Cruces second, Rio Rancho third, etc., down their poll and ranking. So Volcano Vista gets 16 points, Las Cruces gets 15 points, Rio Rancho gets 14 points, and all the way down. We then add up all the points for every school that submitted a form, and the school with the most amount of points becomes number 1 in the coaches poll. The team with the second most points becomes number 2 in the coaches ranking, etc., etc. So that's how we determine where a team ranks when it comes to coaches' input. As you can see, there are some blank columns. There are schools that don't submit a form. If coaches don't send in these forms, it can be greatly affected where a team might be seated. So make sure, if you're a coach, you get in that form. The district placement forms are in, the member school input forms are in. We are ready to begin the seeding and selection process. Let's start with two schools. How about we compare Las Cruces and Rio Rancho? Here's a look at the 6 criteria points we use to evaluate the seeds. The first criteria looked at is finish in regular season district play. Las Cruces finished first, and Rio Rancho did not win their district. So Las Cruces gets a point over Rio Rancho. Next is head-to-head. They didn't play each other, so no point for either team. Next, we measure up wins versus district champs. And when I say wins against district champions, remember, it does not matter the class. Las Cruces could beat a district champ from El Paso, and we would count that. Rio Rancho could beat a district champ from Class 3A, and we would count that. Now, Las Cruces had 1 win against a district champ. Rio Rancho had 6, so Rio Rancho gets a point there. Next is overall record, or their win percentage. Las Cruces is unbeaten at 28-0. They obviously had a better overall record, so they get a point over Rio Rancho. Then we move on to the Maxpreps ranking, and we get the Maxpreps rankings the morning of seeding and selection. Maxpreps had Las Cruces higher in their ranking, so Las Cruces gets another point. Finally, we compare the coach's input form, which I showed you with that matrix. Las Cruces was higher on the coach's input, so they get another point. As you can see, Las Cruces earned a total of 4 points when matched up against Rio Rancho. The overall score was 4-1. So, Las Cruces must be seeded higher than Rio Rancho. That's how it works. We do this for every team comparing one to the other. Now let's take a look at one more example. Let's pair up Las Cruces and Volcano Vista from the 2019 season. The first criteria point is district finish. Las Cruces finished first and Volcano Vista finished first. Neither school gets a point there. Next, we look at head-to-head. They didn't play each other, so neither school gets a point there. Next, wins against district champions. In this case, Las Cruces had 1 win against a district champ. Volcano Vista had wins against 3 district champs. Volcano Vista gets a point for that criteria. Next is overall record. Las Cruces gets a point on that criteria. The next criteria is Maxpreps ranking. Maxpreps had Volcano Vista 1 and Las Cruces 2, so Volcano Vista gets a point for that criteria. And the last criteria we look at is the coach's input forms, which we discussed earlier. They have Las Cruces number 1 and Volcano Vista number 2, so Las Cruces would get that point. Now that leaves 2 points for Las Cruces and 2 points for Volcano Vista. As we said at the beginning of this video, if there is a tie between 2 schools with criteria points, then head-to-head will be used. If there is no head-to-head competition or the head-to-head is tied, then the Maxpreps ranking will be used to break that tie. Las Cruces and Volcano Vista didn't play each other, so then Maxpreps is used to break the tie. And as we mentioned, Maxpreps had Volcano Vista 1 and Las Cruces ranked 2, so Volcano Vista will then be seeded ahead of Las Cruces. Again, this is all data-driven. There is no opinionated input, no bias. It's all based on those 6 criteria points. Now, sometimes it gets a little tricky. Let's say, for example, there's a 3-way tie. Here's another example from a couple years back in softball. Miyamura beat Bernalillo in criteria points 3-2. Los Lunas beat Miyamura in criteria points 4-2, but Bernalillo beat Los Lunas in criteria points 3-2. So, which school gets seeded above the other? There is a way to determine it. Again, it's all based on the numbers. We use the 6 criteria points with all 3 schools. So let's go through this. First criteria point, finish in district play. Los Lunas finished 2nd in their district, Miyamura finished 3rd, and Bernalillo was a district champ. Now to simplify, we rank the 3 schools, 1, 2, 3. So as you can see by this 1 criteria point, since we are ranking them, a team will win the 3-way tie with the lowest total points. Next is head-to-head. In head-to-head wins against the 3 schools, Los Lunas beat Miyamura and Bernalillo didn't play either school, so again, we issue 1 point for Los Lunas, 2 for Bernalillo, and 3 for Miyamura. Next criteria point is wins against district champions. Los Lunas beat 3 district champions, Miyamura beat 2, and Bernalillo beat 1. Therefore, Los Lunas won that category, so we put a 1 next to them. Miyamura gets a 2 and Bernalillo a 3. Next is overall record, and Los Lunas had a win percentage of .615. Miyamura 720 and Bernalillo 880. Since Bernalillo had the best overall record, we put a 1 next to them. Then it's Miyamura 2 and Los Lunas 3. In the Maxpreps Ranking, Miyamura was ranked 5th, Bernalillo 6th, and Los Lunas 7th. So the order of points is 1 for Miyamura, 2 for Bernalillo, and 3 for Los Lunas. In the coach's input, they had Los Lunas ranked 5th, Miyamura 6th, and Bernalillo 7th. So Los Lunas is a 1, Miyamura 2, and Bernalillo 3. To break the tie, we add up all the points in the 6 criteria, and as you can see, Los Lunas had 11, Bernalillo with 12, and Miyamura with 13. Now remember, in breaking a tie, the smallest amount of points is the winner. So Los Lunas, with the smallest amount of points in this particular tiebreaker, would be seated above Miyamura and Bernalillo. Now, since Los Lunas will be seated above the other schools, we can now take them out of the equation. Now we have Miyamura and Bernalillo. We compare them against each other on their own. Since Miyamura beat Bernalillo against each other on the 6 criteria points, Miyamura has to be seated above Bernalillo. That's how you break a 3-way tie. Now, there are some situations in a 3-way tie when 2 schools have the same amount of points. For example, schools 1 and 2 have 12 points and school 3 has 14 points. Well, we can't take school 1 or 2 out because the 2 top teams are tied. So in this situation, we take out school number 3 since they would have the most points in a 3-way comparison. Once we take them out, remember, they can't be seated above school 1 or school 2. Then we would compare school number 1 with school number 2 to determine who would be seated above the other. So, as you can see, as we go through all the criteria points in seeding and selection, everything is data-driven. There is no bias, no opinion, no input given by the NMAA. When people question why one school was seated above another, it all comes down to the numbers. You have to go back to the 6 criteria points and compare each school against the other in all classification. Every seeding and selection position is justified by the data. Feel free to reach out for any further clarification or questions. Thank you for watching.